It started with a whisper, so soft it barely stirred the air. Elliot Thorne hadn't even realized the little girl had followed him into his office. She stood just inside the door, her small hands twisting nervously around the frayed hem of her cardigan. Mr. Thorne, she said again, her voice trembling. There's a camera in your office. At first, Elliot thought she was confused. He glanced up from the stack of reports that had become the albatross around his neck these past few months. Reports about declining profits, about cost overruns, and suspicious billing, about all the little fractures running through his company Thorne and Webb Consulting that no one else seemed to want to fix. He studied her face, searching for any hint that this was some kind of prank, but she looked terrified. Her name was Emily. She was 8 years old, and had been coming to the office after school to wait for her mother, Angela, his head accountant. He set his pen down carefully. Emily, what camera? She swallowed, her brown eyes darting to the bookshelf that lined the wall behind his desk. I saw a red light in the corner. When you left for lunch, I think someone's watching you. Elliot felt a coldness crawl up his spine. He rose slowly, as though any sudden movement might shatter the fragile moment between them. He walked to the shelf. At first, nothing seemed out of place, just the neat rows of binders and books on corporate law and motivational leadership. Then he crouched down and looked closer. Tucked behind a row of blue ledgers was a tiny, blinking red dot, a hidden camera. He turned back to Emily, who was now hugging herself as though afraid she'd done something terribly wrong. You did the right thing telling me, he said, forcing his voice to stay calm. Thank you. She nodded, relief flickering across her face. He called Angela to come collect her daughter, then locked the door behind them. Alone in his office, Elliot sat in the darkening hush and tried to process what he'd just discovered. Someone had been recording him, but who and why? The next morning he arrived before dawn. He didn't even turn on the lights as he unspooled Ethernet cables and checked the wireless routers. He found not one but 3 hidden cameras, one in the bookshelf, one behind a vent grate, and one cleverly fixed inside the smoke detector. Each had been installed with meticulous care, connected to a receiver that fed the signal. Somewhere. He thought about the way people had been behaving lately, how Angela had started avoiding his gaze, how Rob from HR had begun asking odd leading questions, how his business partner Mitchell Webb had been conveniently absent during most of the recent crises. He thought about the forged invoices he'd been trying to trace, about the phantom vendor accounts that drained thousands from their balance sheets each month. His hand shook as he removed the last camera. When he finally switched on the lights, Elliot no longer saw his office as a place of order and purpose. It was a cage. The day stretched on like a fever dream. At 9 a.m., employees filed in as usual, none aware of what he'd uncovered. They drank coffee, gossiped by the printer, smiled politely when he passed. At 10:15, Mitchell strolled in, all breezy confidence. Morning, Elliot, he said. You look like hell. Elliot gave a tight smile. Rough night. Caught me about it. I had the twins screaming half the asterisk. He stopped. Elliot was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Mitchell. Elliot asked quietly, why did you install cameras in my office? Mitchell blinked, caught off guard. Then his mouth twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What are you talking about? 3 cameras, wired into the network. You've been recording me. Mitchell scoffed. You're paranoid. Am I? Elliot lifted a flash drive and held it between 2 fingers. This contains all the footage your little project captured, including your voice, 2 nights ago, telling Rob you'd have everything ready by the time the merger goes through. A flicker of panic, just for a moment. Then Mitchell turned cold. I don't know what you think you've found. I know exactly what I found. Elliot's voice was steady now, because finally he understood. The cameras weren't about him personally. They were about leverage. Mitchell had been documenting every confidential meeting, every email he dictated aloud, every phone call he made. He was going to use it to prove Elliot's negligence, force him out of the company, and sell Thorne and Webb Consulting to a rival firm. For weeks, Elliot had blamed himself for the missing funds, the unexplained expenses. He'd believed he was losing his mind. But it was Mitchell all along, Mitchell and a handful of employees who'd helped cover it up. He closed his eyes, the humiliation sour in his throat. Get everyone in the conference room, he said. Now by noon, the entire staff had gathered. 32 people sat around the long table, murmuring in confusion. Mitchell leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, glaring. Elliot stood at the head of the table. I won't waste your time, he began. I know most of you have no idea what's been happening behind closed doors, but some of you do. The room grew still. For months our company has been bleeding money, and rather than come to me, rather than help solve the problem, certain individuals chose to betray this firm. They've been complicit in embezzlement, fraud, and the systematic erosion of everything we've built. Angela shifted uncomfortably. Rob looked pale. Elliot lifted the flash drive again. This drive contains proof of that conspiracy. Video, audio, and network logs. Effective immediately, everyone in this room is terminated. A shocked chorus of voices erupted. You can't do this. Someone shouted. I can, Elliot said quietly. And I will. He swept his gaze across the room, letting the betrayal sink in. For those of you who were not involved, I'll be offering severance packages and letters of recommendation. You deserved better leadership. For those of you who weren't, know that the authorities will be in touch. Mitchell surged forward. This is insane. You can't. I can, Elliot repeated. His voice was stronger than it had been in years. And I already have. The next hours were a blur of locked doors, escorted exits, and phone calls to the police and corporate attorneys. When the last person had left, Elliot walked back to his office. He expected to feel victorious, but instead he felt hollow. He had built this place from nothing. He had trusted the people around him to do the right thing, and they'd sold him out. But as he sank into his chair, he thought about Emily, how brave she'd been to speak up. She was a child. She hadn't owed him anything, yet she'd told him the truth when no one else would. He reached for his phone and called Angela. Angela, he said when she picked up, her voice shaking. I want you to know that your daughter saved this company. I don't expect you to forgive me for what I had to do today, but I'm grateful to both of you. There was a pause. Then a choked sob. I didn't know what Mitchell was planning. She whispered, I swear to you, I believe you. And he did. He believed her. Over the next weeks, Elliot worked alone. He tore up old contracts, filed police reports, and began the painstaking process of rebuilding. One afternoon, as he sorted through the wreckage of fraudulent paperwork, he found a stack of photographs, team-building events, holiday parties, charity fundraisers. Faces he'd trusted smiled back at him. It should have broken him, but it didn't. Because in each photograph, no matter how many people were around, Elliot could see it clearly now. The warning signs, the cold calculations behind Mitchell's smile, the sidelong glances between Rob and the others. And he saw something else. Something he'd forgotten over the years. The look on his own face. He had once been a man who believed in integrity above everything else. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost that conviction, blinded by growth and profits and the naive hope that good people always stayed good. But when he closed the last file, he knew one truth would always remain. No matter how carefully you build your world, it only takes a few hidden cracks to bring it all down. 2 months later, Elliot reopened the firm. Smaller this time, just a few desks, a modest office, and a new set of locks. He hired carefully, people who shared his principles, who valued honesty over ambition. The day he hung the new sign above the Dawthorne Consulting Reborn, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Open on the first afternoon in that quiet, sunlit office. There was a knock on the door. It was Angela and Emily, holding a plate of homemade cookies. Elliot smiled as he knelt to Emily's level. You know, he said, you were braver than most adults I know. She beamed shyly. Angela put a hand on his shoulder. Thank you for believing in us. He looked around the small office. The clean walls, the absence of hidden cameras. Thank you, he said softly, for giving me a chance to start over.